Hi, this is Lee Vermidelli, and this is the commentary for the Killuck issue 3. So the cover here is the Wraith sort of metaphorically and physically confronting his past, where he's going to a planet for the first time of the remains of what he's done, where previously, like in his Legion, you would go to a planet, they would do a mission, and they would, raise and pacify a planet, and then they would just move on to the next thing, and they would never go back. But the nature of being sentenced is that he will see the remains of what's been left behind and also the survivors of that. And it forces him to contemplate in a way that a lot of Crusaders never do, like what his actions are actually doing across the galaxy. The first page here, I want to open this issue really casually. So it's almost like a Kevin Smith, movie where they're just four of them are kind of standing right in front of the camera, talking casually. And then the next big spread reveals Hadrian, which is this bombed out world that the Wraith personally helped destroy. That he and a fellow Wraith each took half the city and decimated it. So his own hands did the damage here. The way the Wraith speaks here is interesting, where he says, this balloon where he says, this world was prior a colony. The grammar is intentionally incorrect there. So the only editing that IDW ever did, not really about the story or the art, was they occasionally would fix the Wraith's grammar. And I told them, no, make it back to what it was. Because my notion was that he's sort of like a monk from another century, where it's like even as different as the artisan and the laborer and the kid are, they speak from a contemporary sort of place, that they're from the same society. But the Wraith really isn't. He is from a completely different way of life. So he speaks odd in a way that's normal for his people, but very odd for the rest. This next page here, as they enter the city itself, the first panel, you see a robot holding kind of like a paper airplane, which I debated putting in. It felt too human, but I thought I also wanted a visual cue for someone enjoying themselves. Just like you see two people back there kind of like looking at the water, to show that these people are survivors of this horrible war, but they're still having fun. In present day, where you see kids in bombed out war zones that can still play hide and seek among all the devastation, that it doesn't really register with them what happened. You can also see on the bridge there that there's new components that have been installed to sort of fix the bridge. So there's new machinery coming in to kind of repair the planet. This next panel is one of the more like exposition heavy moments in the series, where it's just giving a bit of background to the Wraith Legion and the arrangement with the Forgers. There's an idea that there is an alliance between them, but it's very shaky, where, the Legion essentially does whatever it wants, but sometimes it will answer the call of what the Forgers ask. And this line the Wraith has at the bottom, where he says there's much the Homeworld Legion disharmonize on, there's a lot more to that. I have an idea of why this alliance happened in the first place, like why this sort of shaky agreement began. It's not so much something for this series, but if I did a sequel, that would definitely be a component of it. This next page is the Wraith coming to terms with seeing one of his actual victims, someone he remembers, where this was, even though this was a heretic in his words, this is someone that fought with purity of heart. So kind of a similar way to his sense of humor in the second issue of using an asteroid to destroy a colony. Now it's sort of the twisted way that he views burning this character's home last as a tribute, that in the Wraith's mind that was sort of justice. I wanted their society again to feel kind of odd and different, but you can see that he shows reverence for a worthy opponent. This next page is the Axials Museum. You can see it's also like completely new sort of components. It's different from the world around it. The idea that she came here to show these people that there's good in the universe, or there's not just this horror, that she wants to atone for her own past sins here. The cloaks that have never really worked to help them are also not helping, especially on this planet where these people know the size of a Wraith. So the kid will go off with the artisan. In the last issue, the kid went off with the laborer and the Wraith, and he got lessons in life that way. And now he's getting a lesson from sort of his most, cruel and uncomfortable father figure. So they go off. The Wraith sits down in this large tunnel, this pipe, where bodies from his past deeds have just been kind of shoveled in there to get them off the street. So I like the notion that the Wraith's face is this thing that you read your own, or you add your own reading to, that the lack of recognizable human features forces you to kind of imagine what he's thinking, but hopefully you kind of get a sense of it. And then this page introduces the Axial, who's a major character. I like that this character, in a way, has the most complicated backstory of any of them. By the time we meet her in the story, she is on at least the third chapter of her life, where she was this designer in the inner circles of her society, designer of the kill lock, a real savant who eventually was allowed this rare, she was allowed to leave, basically. And after that, went to the party planet, formed a bar. The notion there that she was trying to atone for what she was doing previously, by, partying and letting people have fun. But then that didn't work for her for reasons we'll get into. And so now she's on at least the third chapter, where she's on this planet now doing the most altruistic thing she's done, which is to build a museum and just to show them like relics from the universe, that there is other stuff out there, and to get some peace for her own kind of past sins here. This next page introduces, this character never had a name, but I always refer to her as the grandma robot, where there's the archetype of like a tiny character carrying really heavy bags, where that's this kind of universal language. And the Wraith, his inherent morality, at least in this situation, is to help. He doesn't like seeing someone who can't carry their own supplies home. So what should be a good deed kind of leads to him being brought to his knees, where he finds out that this is a character that was here when he personally destroyed the planet. So she's witnessed him killing people, including her friends. And it's meant to sort of be the Wraith being brought to his knees by the most unlikely source, which we'll get into right after this scene, which is probably the most horrible thing the artisan has done in the series to this point, where the kid is sort of, enjoying himself. He's like throwing rocks into a lake, like a kid does, where he's distracted. And the artisan tells him, after the last planet, you don't really seem to understand what we're in here, like how deep this thing is. So I'm going to show you what the kill lock actually is. So he approaches another group on this planet that has the kill lock. You can see there's another labor class there, the purple one with the red stripes, to show that that's sort of the most common, sentenced class. And the artisan chooses to just kill one of them. This idea of the kill lock on your chest actually turning an electric red, that came late in the game. Initially, I thought the symbol should just be a brand, but then I thought, if it lights up, it sort of suggests that there's more internal mechanisms. It's connected into you a lot deeper. And I thought, also a red light going off on your own chest felt really threatening. The fourth member of their group is chosen to stay behind on a beach moon, which gets back to a line from the first issue, where you don't have to be together to die from this thing. That was the true nightmare to me, is that it's not so much strength in numbers. It's, you're off by yourself having a great time, and then suddenly you just get killed. And that's what happens to their poor fourth member, who arguably is at, the zenith of his life. He's met someone that he really loves. They love him. And then at the happiest moment of his life, that's when his kill lock goes off. So not only does he die, but the person he's met, they witness it going off. And so they will tell stories about how horrible the kill lock is, that they saw someone, have fire coming out of their eyes and then to run off. That's the true horror of this punishment, is how it impacts everyone as well as the victims. And the notion of fire coming out of their eyes is, I wanted a really disturbing visual that the kid would remember. It's not so much that you fall down and die. It's fire shoots out of your eyes. And this is something that he will definitely take into the next issue. So from there, we return to the Wraith and the grandma robot, where she sort of puts him in his place verbally, where, we've never seen the Wraith confront a physical threat in this series yet that he couldn't handle. Everything was relatively easy, but now it's, the most unlikely source really, crushing him. And when she closes the door on him, her door has a Wraithius symbol, which is returning to that symbol from the last issue that was on the casino, a bunch of kind of drug runners and criminals and, gun-toting characters. Now it's a sort of innocent old robot that has that symbol. And that's sort of the worst thing the Wraith can see, is that someone that he would consider a very pure soul also shares a complete hatred and dislike of what he represents. This next page is the Axial also putting kind of the labor in his place, where explaining to him that, just by coming to see me, you're sort of showing in a way why you deserve this punishment, because you're not even thinking about protecting other people or learning to live with other people. You just want out of this, And I wanted her to give him enough information where not even telling him what to do, but just giving him options, like this notion too, where she says, if that doesn't work for you, go find a quiet planet and hide. I wanted her to be as gray and sort of, there's a coldness to her that kind of matches the other characters. I didn't want her to suddenly be this beacon of hope that would save them. The next page here, when the laborer comes out, you can see that the kid and the wraith are looking away. The kid's looking down, the wraith's looking away, that they both experienced something on this planet that's traumatized them a bit. Whereas the artisan is singularly focused on straight ahead. And so he goes to confront the axial. And I wanted what he said to her to be really kind of harsh and physically threatening, like just not even giving her a chance. And then I also wanted her to not be fazed by it at all. That this is the first time the artisan in the series has come across someone that was his intellectual equal and fully capable of what he can do and not bothered by it or fazed by it. The notion of the axial was encounter things that were at least as bad out there. And then her justification of sending them away, that this planet, her museum, is supposed to represent something good, and them being here is just a reminder of something bad. I also like this last kind of line she says to the artisan where, she sort of puts him in his place about he prides himself on his intellect, but now he's speaking to someone also with a lot of intellect, and she's giving him a bit of advice that intellect only carries you so far, and there might be stuff out there that you're not prepared for. And that's a theme that'll continue into the next issue too. The next page, they are proceeding to the world of the cure, where the laborer puts his hand on the kid's back and says, we're close to getting our lives back. And that's what links into kid's memories, where he's really never had a life. He's only had essentially 3 memories before this series begins. His first memory is looking up. It's his POV right after he was made, where someone sort of nicked the table. He's not even a fully built, not even an unfinished yet. He's like a barely began yet, and they're already telling him that, it's over. His life is over. This is another abused class of robot too. You can see that they're talking about the artisans. This is kind of an assistant class that works under the artisans on the homeworld. The kid is being sentenced in his second memory, and then his third memory is seeing the laborer for the first time. I liked this font here. I asked Tom Long to do a font like a kid would write. I wanted it to be like memory 1, memory 2, memory 3, something just really simple that a kid would say, different than how the laborer's captions were also sort of simple. But this next page is meant to be like, the idea is that you get sentenced, that you get dropped on a planet in these capsules. Then your capsule opens and you are greeted with the other robots. You would never even really meet them before. So in the background there, you can see a capsule still smoking. The idea that's the Wraith's capsule, and he's just gotten out. So in the third panel, as the artisan comes to us, the laborer is meeting the Wraith for the first time. And the notion is shortly after this, the artisan would have gone to the bar to get a drink in issue 1. This is really the start of the series. And showing the kid only has these handful of memories, but he's committed to building a life. This next page shows that the axial, for all her kind of frustration and irritation of the artisan, she is still smart, and she really is strategic, and she feels this sense of conscience of, maybe I should check this thing out one more time. And she waits just a little too long. So she watches them leave the planet when they have a kid on board, which she did not know. So you see that there is a compassion to this character. She goes back to her museum, and you can see she goes below the museum level to this kind of basement where there is this communication device that she's really reluctant to use. There's that one silent panel of her face is meant to show that she really does not want to activate this thing. But we can see she's talking to some unknown characters, that they have some arrangement where she's giving them deliveries. And sort of this very reluctant arrangement that we'll find out a lot more about soon. This final splash page, I wanted this to be a disturbing visual of just a door in the ground, kind of like a coffin. And in the background, 2 hulking, kind of monstrous robots. This is a class we haven't seen before. We're going to meet next issue. The cover for issue 4 we can see here is the laborer coming face to face with one of those classes. And I wanted it to be mysterious because, again, the nature of comics, like these things are released so early, you don't want to tip your hat about what the story is going to be. But I wanted him to really sort of feel overpowered and, facing something that's really ominous. This next page, this is the first of the psychological profiles by Dr. Drea Letamendi. I'm really excited about this special feature in here. Drea is a famous psychologist, also host of the Arkham Sessions with Brian Ward, who's also producing these commentaries. And I'm really excited about these. I think it's really cool. Like, Drea obviously really knows psychology as her trade, but also really understands storytelling and characters. There were things that, even though like I created these characters, reading her profiles really made me understand them more. And there were things that I had kind of come up with for them that I didn't think were that obvious on the page, and she really pointed it out in a great way. I think I'm really happy that these are in here. And these sketches in here, you can see these are early sketches of the kid, like his early kind of design phase. I thought it'd be interesting to have sort of like a psychologist notepad that you're doodling or you're sketching around about your subject or your patient. It seemed like it fit with the psychological theme. This first pinup is by Sarah Petra Derochet, who's another Transformers artist. I love this shot of the Axial. I think it's an amazing painting. Like the colors are so cool. The angle is really interesting. And then her carving the Killock symbol into the wall, that there's sort of like, that's such an interesting idea. I never would have thought to do it, but it's so interesting that the idea that there's sort of a cursed symbol in her own life that she created, and she uses it a bit of like graffiti. Just a really beautiful piece. This next pinup is by my friend Chris Burnham, who's worked with Grant Morrison and Robert Kirkman. He's my table mate at San Diego Comic-Con every year. We're in Artist Alley together. This is an awesome image. I love the graphic nature of it, like the characters stacked there by height, and then the Wraith sort of just fading into shadow with just his eyes visible. Like this is just such a cool piece. Very thankful to all these really amazing people for contributing. And then these pencils in the back are by me. I thought it would be cool to show some process stuff, because on social media, people are always asking to see not just the finished stuff, but also the stuff to, what got you there. So these are pencils in progress for page 5 when the Wraith discovers one of his former victims. And then the next one is the cover pencils in progress. So you can see, for example, a cover like this, how much I do in the coloring stage, because it's, it's ash and wind, and a lot of that is atmospherics that I do later digitally. But yeah. And that is the end of issue 3. I'll see you for issue 4. Thank you.